Hello, dear students. In this lesson, you will listen to about the newspapers and the headlines of the articles. Newspapers are an important source of information, but readers must be aware of the conscious or unconscious bias that be built into the interpretation of news. When you read a newspaper, you never want to read all the articles and stories. Usually you check the headlines and just choose to read those articles which look interesting. And now look at these four newspaper headlines. Which headlines do you think will have stories of interest to you? The first headline is Hartman alive and kicking. The second headline is Concord's birthday. The third headline $1 million reward. The fourth headline is 3 million for a vet. Now look at these words and repeat after me, please. These words are to these texts. Which words do you think go with which headline and why? Let's repeat. Fit – подходящий, graceful – изящный, приятный, and honesty – честность, a lottery – лотерея, a mansion – большой особняк, to operate – оказывать влияние, a spinster – старая дева или незамужняя женщина, to train – тренироваться, a transplant – пересадка органа, a wallet – бумажник, a will – завещание, worth – достоинство, ценность, a stable – конюшня, speed – скорость. Choose one headline only. What do you want to know when you read the article? Write 2 questions. For example, why did the man need a new heart? How old is Concord? What did the person do to get $1 million? Why did the vet get 3 million? And the first article is about the Hartman alive and kicking. Bill DePhil Young is celebrating a very special anniversary today. It's exactly 1 year since he was operated on a St. Bartholomew's Hospital and given a new heart. Mr. Young, 47, of Tottenham, is now so full of energy that he is training to play in a charity football match to raise money for the hospital's transplant program. So far 11 people have been given new hearts. Mr. Young wants to help others like himself. In 1990, he was seriously ill with heart disease. He couldn't work, he couldn't climb the stairs, and he had 2 young sons to look after. Now the boys are helping to train their father for the football match. My boys are very pleased that I am so fit again, said Mr. Young. I have become a real father of them again. We don't just play football. We go jogging and swimming and play snooker together. I hope more people will be helped by the hospital as I was. The next headline, the next article is Concord's birthday. Concorde, the world's fastest and most graceful passenger plane, will soon be 25 years old. It first flew on 2nd March 1969 from Toulouse in France. Concorde was developed by both France and Britain. From 1956, these 2 countries had a dream of a supersonic passenger plane. In 1962, they started to work together on the project. The plane cost over $1.5 billion to develop. It's the most tested plane in the history of aviation. It was given over 5,000 hours of testing. Concorde flies at twice in speed of sound. This means that it takes only 3 hours 25 minutes to fly between London and New York, compared with 7-8 hours in other passenger jets. Because of the 5-hour time difference between the USA and Britain, it is possible to travel west on Concorde and arrive in New York before you leave London. You can catch the 10:30 a.m. flight from London, Heathrow, and start work in New York an hour earlier. Concorde is much used by business people and film stars, but its oldest passenger was Mr. Ethel Lee from Leicestershire in England. She was 99 years old when she took off from Heathrow on 24th of February 1985. Each Concorde is built at a cost of 155 million. 20 have been built so far. Air France and British Airways own the most. They each have 7 planes. Next article is $1 million reward. Mr. William Murphy from Montreal in Canada now knows that honesty pays. Last Sunday, he returned a lost lottery ticket to its owner, and he was given $1.2 million as a reward. Last Thursday, Mr. Murphy, age 28 and unemployed, found a wallet on a Montreal street. It contained $85, some credit cards, and some lottery tickets. Mr. Murphy checked the address in the wallet and immediately posted it back to its owner, Mr. Jean-Paul Dupont, but he didn't send the lottery tickets back. I kept the tickets. I wanted to check them. I thought maybe I would win $10 or something. On Sunday, Mr. Murphy bought a newspaper and started checking the numbers on the tickets. He couldn't believe it. He had the winning ticket. It was worth $7 million. He thought about keeping the tickets and getting the money for himself. He sat and thought about it for 2 hours, but he knew that he had to do. He took the bus to Mr. Dupont's address and knocked at the door. The door was opened not by Mr. Dupont, but by his son, Ives, who doesn't speak English very well. "Good evening," said Mr. Murphy. "Are you Mr. Dupont?" "Oui," said Ives. "Well, congratulations. You are a millionaire." "Ah?" said Ives. When his father came to the door, he understands English, but he didn't believe his ears until he was shown the lottery ticket and the newspaper. "What an honest man," he said. "You deserve a reward at least 1 million, I think." And the last article is million for a vet. Vet Peter Pocock has been left a fortune by a spinster whose horses and dogs he looked after. The 90 years spinster, Miss Margaret de Beaumont, was helped in other ways by Mr. Pocock. He cleaned and tidied her 11th-room Elizabethan mansion when she became too old and ill to care for it. When she died, she left him everything in her will: her money, the house and gardens, her stables, all of which is worth 3 million. Miss de Beaumont families are furious. Her niece, Mrs. Cherian Pickford, said, "We're very upset. We're going to fight the will. My aunt didn't know that she was doing. She was senile in her last years." Mr. Pocock, 42, lives in the next village with his wife and baby daughter. They were shocked by Miss de Beaumont's generosity. "We can't believe it," said Mrs. Pocock. "So much money is wonderful, but will it make us happier? Money can bring problems. Our hope is that the mansion will be made beautiful again. Perhaps we can do that now with the money." Miss de Beaumont bought the mansion in 1934 and started a horse farm. It has not been looked after well for many years, but the beauty of the buildings and the garden can still be seen. And your homework for today will be to choose one of these articles and find 4 questions for your story and answer them. Find the 4 questions for your story and answer them from these questions. Why is it a special anniversary for Phil Young? Did France develop Concorde alone? Why is Peter Pocock a lucky man? Why is William Murphy a lucky man? Why is Mr. Young training to play football? How many hours testing was Concorde given? Why are Miss de Beaumont's family furious? What did Mr. Murphy do with the wallet? What can Mr. Young do now that he couldn't do in 1990? Did Mr. and Mrs. Pocock expect to get Miss de Beaumont's money? When Mr. Murphy saw he had the winning ticket, did he go to Mr. Dupont's house immediately? In what ways is Mr. Young a real father again? How is it possible to begin work in New York before you leave London? What do Mr. Dupont believe that he was a millionaire? Why was Ethel Lee a special passenger? Goodbye and good luck.